Welcome to the Bahamas High School Diploma Review Commission's Town Hall meeting. It's a meeting with members of the public to dialogue with Commission members as they review and possibly amend criteria for 12th grade students to earn a national high school diploma. This is a production of the Communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training.
Hello, I'm Vaughn Albury. Welcome to this Town Hall meeting hosted by the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission. This is the fifth of a number of Town Hall meetings to be held throughout the country to discuss the 8 criteria necessary for the Bahamas High School Diploma. We begin tonight's Town Hall meeting with a prayer by Reverend Nelson Bain. He's the pastor of New Beginning Life Church. He's also the treasurer of the Grand Bahama Christian Council. Reverend Bain.
Let us pray. Gracious Father, we thank you and bless your name this afternoon for your faithfulness, your loving kindness, and your tender mercies. Thank you, Father, for the opportunity again to glorify your name, Father, through serving in the various capacities, O God, that this commission is serving in this evening. Father, I pray your blessing upon them. I pray your blessing on all deliberations here this evening, all the discussions and everything that would be put forward by parents and teachers alike. Father, I pray, O God, that you will grant wisdom that comes from you, Father, to the commission. I pray, Father, that as they would deliberate, as they would discuss, as changes, O God, are recommended, that what is recommended, O God, will be for the honor and the glory of Almighty God and the betterment, O God, of our citizenry here in the Bahamas. Bless this procedure this evening, O God. Bless each and every person who have come. Bless the families associated with the children, O God, that attend our schools. And Father, after all is said and done, let it be said, O God, continuously that this was a good time for us to come together to plan purposefully for the glory of God and the betterment of our nation. In Jesus' name, let everyone say, amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Nelson Bain. As I said earlier, there'll be a number of other subsequent town hall meetings throughout the Bahamas, from Grand Bahama all the way down to Inagua. So there will be meetings in Eleuthera, Exuma, Long Island, Cat Island, Acklands, Mayaguana, and Inagua. This is the second town hall meeting here on the island of Grand Bahama. On October 17th, a meeting was held at the 8 Mile Rock High School. We now invite you to listen to the Minister of Education and Technical and Vocational Training, the Honorable Glennis Hannah Martin, as she shares with us the purpose of the National Review Commission and its work regarding the Bahamas High School Diploma. Minister Hannah Martin.
Greetings. I wish to thank the National Commission for the review of the high school diploma for their diligence in this process, which includes town meetings nationwide to obtain input from the wider population. This process is important because the diploma has far-reaching implications for our children and young people, and the voices of all stakeholders must be heard. This commission has been tasked with reviewing the objects and purpose of the high school diploma, studying its core criteria, and analyzing the impacts of these criteria in total or singularly, and to determine whether the objects and purposes are being achieved. Further, if deemed necessary and/or appropriate, the Commission will submit its considered recommendations and/or observations to the Ministry for reform or appropriate adjustments. The underlying purpose of this Commission is to ensure that the prevailing criteria for the high school diploma maintains relevancy and are accurate reflection of student attainment in light of the progressive trends and evolving strategies in education, and in consideration of educational research, to ensure that our high school diploma reflects true attainment of the students and sets appropriate standards and best practices. The objective is to create the framework and to establish the foundation for our children to aspire for higher performance and to meet the objectively recognized standards. This is not an exercise to compromise standards. I have heard the voices of educators, parents, and students. Education is the key to national development and is germane to individual progress and a sense of self. This beloved nation of ours will be as good as the emerging generations are. How they are prepared and positioned and ethically grounded, how their enormous potential is refined and developed, is key to our nation's progress. The school campus, wherever it exists throughout our archipelago, and its captive audience of students, is an amazing and invaluable and exciting opportunity to tap into the incredible potential of our children and to help map out a future that our ancestors could only have dreamed of. I thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much, Minister Hannah Martin. We now invite you to listen to the chairman of the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission, a Grand Bahamian, Mr. Cecil Thompson, as he will introduce his fellow commission members. Mr. Cecil Thompson.
The Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training has sought to engage a cross-section of stakeholders in its efforts to address a comprehensive review of the Bahamas High School Diploma. It is with a sense of humility that I serve as the chairman of the commission. I am Cecil Thompson. Other commission members include Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary Kishan Bastian, representing the Ministry of Education; Elise Delancey, Bahamas Conference of Methodists, Division of Education and Training; Dorothy Anderson, Baptist Education; Claudette Roll, Catholic Board of Education; Italia Davis, Anglican Central Education Authority; Perry Cunningham, President, Bahamas Association of Independent Secondary School; Kirkwood Green, President, Bahamas Scholastic Athletic Association; Anthony Burrows, Seventh-day Adventist Schools; Dr. Beulah Farquharson, University of the Bahamas; Delano Archer Jr., Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute; Dr. Anthony Hamilton, President, Civil Society of the Bahamas; Mark Bettel, Ministry of Works; Belinda Wilson, President, Bahamas Union of Teachers; Sandra Major, President, Bahamas Educators, Counselors and Allied Workers Union; Stephen McPhee, President, Bahamas Educators Managerial Union; Crystal Rutherford Ferguson, President, Bahamas Chamber of Commerce Employers Confederation. Commission members representing the Family Islands include Hezekiah Dean, Grand Bahama; Iris Pinder, Long Island; Angela Roll, Andros; Janine Curtis, Exuma; Herbert Edgecombe, Abaco; Paul Tainquest, San Salvador; Johnny Butler, Eleuthera; Anne Willamay Bridgewater, Inagua. My fellow Bahamians, we have all made a commitment to engage all relevant stakeholders to ensure that our students throughout the length and breadth of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas have a chance to receive an equitable and quality education. We look forward to your partnership. Thank you.
Very much, Chairman Thompson. Ladies and gentlemen, parents, thank you very much for your participation. That is the most important element of this National Review Commission. First, I want you to pay attention to the various members of the subcommittees of the Bahamas National High School Diploma National Review Commission. We will begin on my extreme left with the President of the Bahamas Union of Teachers, Mrs. Belinda Wilson, who will talk about the criteria of her subcommittee. Mrs. Wilson.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm Belinda Wilson, President of the Bahamas Union of Teachers, and I serve on the subcommittee for criteria. My chairman is the former Director of Education, Mrs. Iris Pinder, and members of our subcommittee is Italia Davies, the Director of the Anglican Schools, and Mr. Hezekiah Dean, former educator who resides in Grand Bahama. And you would be aware, as a parent or a student, that there are 8 requirements for the Bahamas High School Diploma. So our duty is going to be for us to review the literature, review the 8 criteria, and to look at the deficiencies and the strengths. And I can guarantee you that we will ensure that we are meticulous, but at the end of the day, whatever recommendations we give, we will be advocates for the students and to ensure that no student is going to be disenfranchised. So we are very pleased that you're here this evening, and we look forward to your ideas, recommendations as we move forward this evening. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Wilson. We now move to Elise Delancey. She's the Director of Education for the Bahamas Conference of Methodists. But on her subcommittee, she's dealing with data submission, human resources, and appeals. Ms. Delancey.
Good evening. My name is Elise Delancey, and I co-chair the subcommittee for data submission, human resources, and appeals with Mrs. Dorothy Anderson. I think that you all would remember her because she was one of the district superintendents in Grand Bahama. In this subcommittee, we are concerned with the process and procedures for requesting and issuing diplomas. We are going to recommend standardized processes and procedures. We will review the process and the requirements for submission of information and recommend appropriate standards for the submission of this data. We are concerned for quality control mechanisms that will protect the integrity, the retrieval, the storage of your data. We will recommend criteria for appeal to include the justification, the timelines, and the mode, that is, how you will make the appeal. We will recommend the composition of and process for an appeals committee so that the appeals are not decided by any one person. We will recommend the required resources, human, financial, and technical, to bring all of these things into effect. And lastly, we will recommend the organizational chart for the establishment of the Bahamas High School Diploma Unit. At the moment, I think that it has about 2 people or 3 people trying to do the work for all of the schools. So we will be recommending the organization and the organizational chart for the Bahamas High School Diploma Unit. We are here, and I'm representing that subcommittee tonight because we want to hear what issues, what challenges you may have had with data submission, and also we would like to hear the recommendations. So I know that you know or you have ideas for improvement. So we would like to hear those ideas as well, please. So both your challenges and your recommendations would assist us in meeting our goals and doing the work that's been set before us. We do thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you this evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Delancey. Next, we move to a lady who's been here on the island of Grand Bahama for some 40 years. This is Sandra Major, the president of the Bahamas Educators, Counselors, and Allied Workers Union, and her area of focus, comparative analysis. Mrs. Major.
So much. Yes, I am Sandra Major. The co-chair for our comparative analysis is Dr. Anthony Hamilton. He is the president of Civil Society Bahamas, and Claudette Rowe, who is the director of the Catholic School Board. Also on our committee, we have Ms. Jamia Curtis. The comparative analysis subcommittee is responsible for looking at the different jurisdictions that we have. We're using 10, including Japan, Singapore, China, Cuba, the United States, Jamaica. And what we're proposing to do is look to see what pathways are offered in the different countries to obtain a high school diploma. What are their criteria for the high school diploma? What do you need? What do you need from primary school up to their exit in getting their diploma? Dr. Anthony Hamilton, he is the civil society, and he's responsible. He knows what jobs you need in this country. So he's an excellent person to be a part of this team, because in forming different pathways for our children, we recognize that we are really academic based. And we know that not all children learn the same way. So we have to diversify education, and it does not start in grade 10. The responsibility of the diploma starts from primary school, because we can identify children from primary school as they're leaving who need to go to a different type of school. Different learning. Some children learn with their hands. Some children it's just their way of learning. So we must, in this country, be prepared to change our pathways, because we need to diversify in order to reach all of them. So this committee, with our research, hopes to take the best of what different countries have to offer, see what works in our country, and then marry the two together to come up with a better product at the end, so that every child in this country has an opportunity to graduate with a diploma in whichever area they are efficient in. And so that really is our main focus at the end of the day, that no child in the Bahamas is left behind.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Major. Again, this is not your high school diploma of yesteryear, which only relied on you passing an examination. You're talking about building a holistic child. And next we have Mr. Stephen McPhee, the president of the Bahamas Educators Managerial Association, and his topic, his area of work for this work, which is a collaborative effort of so many stakeholders, is inclusion. We are building a better Bahamas, not on the 15% who could pass examinations as in the past. Mr. McPhee.
A pleasant good evening all. I'm bringing greetings on behalf of the subcommittee inclusion. I know here in Grand Bahama today we had the opportunity to meet with the first group of stakeholders, and present was the representative from Hampton Academy and also the Beacon School. Two schools that this committee is specifically concerned with, and is seeking to provide a greater level of inclusion for access to the Bahamas High School Diploma. The subcommittee inclusion is led by Dr. Beulah Farquharson, who's the disability specialist at the University of the Bahamas. The committee members include Brother Paul Turnquest, a Family Island representative from the island of San Salvador, Brother Mark Bethel, who is an employee at the Ministry of Labor, and Brother Kirkwood Green, who is the president of the Scholastic Athletic Association. This group has co-opted several special educators and industry professionals to assist with its agenda to address the inclusive desire of having a greater access to diploma by our special needs students. The broad-based goal of this group is to review inclusion of students with special needs and their ability to access this diploma. The committee purpose is guided by the following. 1, to review the existing criteria with the view of recommending a broader perspective of special needs, specifying classifications to be included with justification. And secondly, the committee will seek to factor in other categories of students who fit the special needs profile. I know most persons, when we speak about special needs, sometimes the only persons who come to mind is those persons who may have physical learning disabilities or those who may be on the spectrum for what we may consider slow learners. However, the profile also will be inclusive of students who are at risk of having disabilities, students with limited language proficiency and cultural differences, students with specific learning disabilities like dyslexia and dysgraphia, students who are economically and also socially challenged, and students with intellectual disabilities who may fit into the transition from school to workplace. The committee recommendations will seek to incorporate global standards of inclusion, ensuring that all students, no matter what their challenges may be, have a fair opportunity to access this diploma. We are well aware in 2022 that students who in the past may have been left out with what have been the old diplomas that would have been given school-based. Now we find that there are laws and rules that actually guide governments in ensuring that these persons are provided an opportunity to be employed in what we would call the normal workplace. So most of you will even find you go into a Wendy's or a McDonald's, in some private and even public sectors, there are laws that require that a certain percentage of the employees fit what we would call the profile of special needs. And so the goal of this subcommittee would be to make every effort to ensure that recommendations coming from it after such stakeholders meeting seeks to provide greater access to those students who may fall in what we may consider special needs category.
Thank you very much, Mr. McPhee. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, parents. You see the commitment of the stakeholders, the various stakeholders. We have three union presidents, Mr. McPhee, Mrs. Major, and Mrs. Wilson. They are on board with the goal of reaching more and more of our students to be able to competently manage life and their lives in building a better Bahamas. Before I reintroduce Chairman Thompson, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Ivan Butler, second on my left. He is the District Superintendent for Grand Bahama, Bimini, and its Keys, and the principal of our host school, St. George's High School, Mrs. Bronwyn Smith. Let's give them a hand, ladies and gentlemen. And now I invite Chairman Thompson to give his brief remarks. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Albury. I stand on the protocol as has been established by our host, Mr. Albury. The only thing left for me to say is distinguished parents and guardians and those educators and parents and guardians and students who are participating in this ceremony via Zoom, a pleasant good evening. I say a pleasant good evening. He asked me to be brief if you don't respond. I've said too many times that one of the highest honors that has ever been bestowed on me was when I was appointed to serve as the chairman of the National Review Commission by the Honorable Minister of Education, Glenys Hannah Martin. And it came 10 years after I retired from the public service. And one of the humblest experiences I've had is that she would have appointed me again to serve as the chairman some 15 years after I retired or had been involuntarily separated from the Ministry of Education. For those parents on the Family Islands who are watching, just let me say the Honorable Minister would have surrounded me with a cast of, what should I call you? A cast of stars to guarantee that I would never fail in this exercise. You heard from some of them tonight. There are many other members, as you would have seen from my introduction, and she would have tasked us or directed us to look at every aspect of parents, the Bahamas high school diplomas, right? And make considered recommendations to the minister for implementation. I can assure you, as the president of the Bahamas Union of Teachers and retired permanent secretary Delancey said, we shall do just that. You might wonder, why would a gray-haired old man accept an appointment from the Minister of Education at this late season in his life? I could not afford to say no. Why? Because I am a proud product of a public school education, and I received my education, my tertiary education, from the majority rule government. I'm a proud graduate of St. Salvador Teachers College, and once I graduated from St. Salvador Teachers College, all the other doors opened for me. And so once she appointed me, I strapped on my educational cleats, and I'm off and running so hard. Why am I running so hard? When I retired, I told Grand Bahamians, fellow commissioners, that I was retiring from the public service, but never from serving the public. And Grand Bahamians had kept my feet to the fire. Tell the truth, I don't want to retire. From Sweetings Key to West End, Mr. Albury, they treat me like a king.
There you go.
From Waterkeep, Freetown, High Rock, McLeanstown, Pelican Point, Sweetings Key, in almost 50 years, I've never spent a copper for anything. I could go in everybody's yard and everybody's house and everything, there's no charge. The same thing in 8 Mile Rock and West End, and so forth. And so, how could I say no to them? Many years before I came to 8 Mile Rock, well, it was 3 years, and 4 years before I became principal of Hawksville High, I served in South Andros. And when I was transferred to 8 Mile Rock to be the principal, the parents got up in arms and asked the then Prime Minister for me to stay another year. That explains why I went to 8 Mile Rock in 83 rather than 82. And every time after Sir Lyndon visited Grand Bahama, he comes to Hawksville High and he began his speech by saying, Mr. Principal, I've come to Hawksville High to make a small down payment on a debt I can never repay. Mr. Albury, I've accepted the appointment from the minister, and parents, I'm here tonight to make a small down payment on that huge debt that I've owed you for the past 40 years. But you're not here to hear from me, we're here to hear from you. Good night and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Yes, you're here to serve. You have not retired, but you're here to serve the public. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to our first break. You're watching the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission's Town Hall meeting coming from St. George's High School in Freeport, Grand Bahama. We'll be back in a moment.
In an effort to invoke school pride in our public school students and encourage a greater awareness of their school's history, the Communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training is organizing a school pride video competition throughout the Bahamas. All videos are to be produced by the students in collaboration with faculty from their respective schools. Completed videos must then be posted to the school's Facebook page with a tag to the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training's Facebook page. Winner of the primary, junior, and senior high schools will be determined by the number of likes received on Facebook. For competition guidelines, visit the Ministry of Education's Facebook page. Lights, camera, action! The Bahamas Learning Channel is back and revolutionized. The relaunch of the Bahamas Learning Channel is a timely, modern, and sophisticated undertaking geared towards the academic improvement of viewers of every age. New, creative, and imaginative shows are being added, and some of our most popular content is being upgraded. The Bahamas Learning Channel will provide engaging, cutting-edge, and interactive programs that will complement traditional classroom instruction and enhance the learning experience throughout our nation.
Welcome back. You're watching the Bahamas High School Review, the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission's Town Hall meeting. We're coming from the St. George's High School in Freeport, Grand Bahama. In this segment, we invite questions, comments, and/or recommendations from our parents and teachers gathered here. When you each came into this room tonight, this auditorium, you were handed the 8 criteria, the 8 points necessary to obtain the Bahamas High School Diploma. Well, I now invite you to watch a video presentation as Mrs. Keishan Bastian, the Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training and co-chair of the National Review Commission. She will break down the numbers of the Bahamas High School Diploma.
Welcome, parents. We are delighted that you are taking time to be with us today, wherever you may be, to get an understanding of what the Bahamas High School Diploma looks like and what the criteria are that your students are expected to satisfy. They're very simple, and we do it as a call of numbers: 4, 2, 27, 30, 90, 90, 20, and 3. That's it. That's all your children have to satisfy to earn the Bahamas High School Diploma. I'll break it down for you so that you can follow along and understand the minimum criteria that's been set. Students are required to earn 4 BJCs with a D grade minimum: mathematics, language arts, a science subject, and a social science or CTE subject. We've permitted a D grade as a passing mark because D is the middle of the BJC scale on the national level. And so students with 4 D grades minimum would have satisfied the BJC requirement. We move on next to the 2, a 2.0 cumulative GPA. That simply means that over the course of 3 years and typically 6 semesters, your student is expected to earn a minimum of a 2.0 GPA each term. We do understand that there are times when students may miss the mark. We've not set it at 2 point each term, we've set it at a cumulative of a 2.0 GPA. What that means is that in the first term of the Christmas term of grade 10, your student may miss the mark slightly. but they rebound in the second term of grade 10. They are well on their way. They are not penalized. The 2-point still stands. And so a minimum 2-point GPA. We've indicated also 27 credit hours. For most of us, credits are new. But if you've had a tertiary exposure experience, you will understand that when you go off to college or university, schools are looking at credits that are earned. What we tried to do was make our diploma not only relevant in the Bahamas, but relevant around the world. Most of our students are going to the US and Canada. Credit systems are what they will meet when they transfer. And so we've instituted credits at the high school level, indicating to our foreign partners that when our children are leaving high school, they are leaving with a minimum number of credits that will go toward transferability to a tertiary institution. 27 credits. We move on now to punctuality and attendance. The high school diploma is not only an academic perspective or satisfaction. We are asking students to be holistic. We are preparing our students for the workplace, and we want them to come out of high school well-rounded. And so we've set 90% punctuality and attendance as the minimum requirement for our students whose job is to come to school. What we are saying, therefore, is that if the child or the student is going to be absent, we understand illness. We understand there are going to be cases when they have to be off. We're asking parents to partner with us and send us a note. If your student is sick and the doctor provides a medical, send that to us. That's not counted against your child. What's counted against your child is when the student is absent from school and there's no documentation from the parent or guardian to say why the child is out of school. Once you write a note, it is covered. If we have a question, we will contact you. In the absence of the question being answered, it's recorded as an absent. Help us in that area. Send us a note. We've moved to community service and job readiness. We want our students to be well-rounded. We want our students to be patriotic. We want our students to be contributing citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And so we've instituted community service. What we're trying to do is to get our students to understand there is more to life than what we are paid to do. There's something called give back. And community service is our way to give back, to build that community spirit, to look out for the elderly in the community. We have set 30 hours minimum. In some institutions, it's up to 100, but in our system, it's only 30 hours. How can they earn it? They can do it at a child care center, they can do it at an old folks home, they can do it by cleaning up the school and the community. As long as it's not paid and the school approves it, it's counted. Industry has said to us, you're sending students to us, they are gifted, they are talented, they are intelligent, but we want to see some more refinement in their interpersonal skills. And so we've instituted, working with the National Training Agency, a job readiness component. And what that does for your child is assist them with understanding some of the dynamics of the workplace. How do you deal with conflict? How do you dress when you go to work? Why is it important to be on time? Only 20 hours. That's the expectation for your child, helping them to be more competitive when they enter the workplace. Finally, we want you to be an integral part of your child's success. And we have set 3 parent-teacher conferences as the minimum for you to come in and interact with the school. If we've learned anything from COVID-19, it's that you don't have to come face-to-face. It can be a Zoom meeting, it can be some teleconferencing, however the school deems necessary to interact with you. We are asking you as parents, engage with us at the school at least one time every academic year on your child's behalf, outside of report card day. Once you do that, once your student does that, they are well on their way to satisfying 4, 2, 27, 30, 90, 90, 20, and 3. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much. We do hope that you can partner with us, and we look forward to granting all of our students a Bahamas High School diploma.
Very much, Mrs. Bastian. This is for us and for the betterment of our children and the betterment and development of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the numbers. You heard the 8 requirements necessary for the Bahamas High School Diploma. And now again, I would like to invite Mrs. Bastian, who will give a presentation on our data summary. Mrs. Bastian.
Good evening, parents, students, stakeholders in education. It is good to have you with us on this evening. I want to provide for you a an overview of the performance of students in the schools in this area and the work that's been done. We do know that there are some questions, and we've seen in the records that are kept at the school level, shifting and modifications, adjustments that are being made relative to the indicators of the Bahamas High School Diploma. I'm going to provide you with a summary of what the data looks like for respective schools over the period. And we're sensitive to the fact the chairman has said so many times before, students on this island, the island of Abaco, would have gone through something that many of us have never and would hope to never experience. And so we are sensitive to that. When we look at the data, we can see that, and I'm going to come down a couple schools and I'm going to do it very quickly just to give you a snapshot of what we're seeing. I can look at a school like Jack Haywood, for example, and I can see that of 121 students in 1 year, 94 would have qualified. St. George's would have had 159, and of that, 131 would have qualified. St. Paul's, Pine Forest, Mary Star, and Tabernacle would all have applied, and similarly would have had at least 85% of their students who would have qualified for diplomas in the respective years. The data that I'm looking at spans 2017 to 2021. And when I look at St. George's, Jack Haywood, for example, I can see that up to 2019, we had about 80% of students for whom diplomas were being requested, being released. In 2019, we saw that of 138 students at Jack Haywood, 111 were successful in receiving their diploma. Of St. George's, 171, 165. We came to 2020 and 2021 and we noticed a significant shift. In the population at Jack Haywood, we noticed that there were 34 students in that year that there was a question relative to the status for their completed requirements for the diploma. And at St. George's, we ended up with 60 students, and we know on the back end we had a data issue. And so on the back end, we saw that 60 students had questions that were rising about criteria being satisfied. When we look at the independent schools in the same year, most of them were exceeded 90% in attaining the Bahamas High School diplomas. Their numbers were significantly smaller. For example, you would have had a school with 29 students at 29 qualified, 33 students, 32 qualified, so their numbers were significantly smaller. We come to 2021 and we recognize that some serious business was shifting, some things were taking place. And I'm going to just give you a snapshot of one school. In a particular school, there were in excess of 225 students, and in that school, we note that there were 106 students that qualified for receipt of the diploma. Now, what that meant was, when you look at status or qualification for the diploma, students are not only given the diploma based on BJCs or GPA. As you heard Mr. Aubrey indicate, it's holistic. And so you have some students that got the BJCs that may not have gotten the GPA. You have some that got the GPA and vice versa, may not have gotten the BJCs. And then you have things like the punctuality and attendance, community service, job readiness, so all of them went together. With the diploma, for your information, students can get one of four certificates. There's a certificate of attendance. For students who would have come to school, they satisfied all of the non-academic criteria. So they got the 90% attendance and punctuality, they did community service, job readiness, they didn't have any serious infractions, they can get a certificate of attendance. Students who got the academic components but did not complete things like job readiness or community service or punctuality and attendance, they're able to earn a certificate of achievement. As a parent, I say to parents, if your child can get the BJC and the GPA, there's no reason why they should not get a diploma. Those other things should be what the children would say, gravy. They can get a diploma. Satisfying the 8 criterion, they can get a diploma. And that's minimum criteria across the country. And then for those students that excel and do exceptionally well, the honor roll students, those students who are still pushing and trying and exceeding the minimum requirement expectations, there's a certificate of excellence all available to our students. But what we noticed in that same year, 2021, when we looked at the students that, of the 106 students that qualified with the completed criteria, we recognized that only 58% of the students in that year had completed data entry on the Ministry of Education side. And what that means is that there are instances where it may not be entirely that a student did not satisfy or did not work very hard. It may be a back-end issue, and with the course of the commission as we're working, we're looking to bring some resolution to bridging the gap between information that is resident at the school and information that resides in the ministry. We thank you so much for your time and attention. That is just a snapshot because I don't want to bore you with all of the numbers, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bastian. Ladies and gentlemen, there you heard it. These are our children. We want our children to succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, the most important component in all of this is you, parents. So now I invite members of our audience to make their way to the podium, the microphone. So we will entertain questions for the commission members. Our first question comes from Ms. Marshall.
Good.
Well, Miss Campbell, go ahead, Miss Campbell.
That's okay. Good evening, panelists. Welcome to Freeport for those of you who are not from here. Good evening, parents and students as well. While I understand that we're looking to standardize our high school diploma and the exit strategy, my question is, our delivery system is not credit-based. How do we really incorporate a credit-based system in our school in the middle of their tenure? Case being, you're implementing it from 10th grade, a credit-based system from 10, 11, and 12. So how is that to work when we don't deliver on a credit base? We just deliver English, and you do English grade 10, 11, and 12. So do they not do any more English after they've completed 10th grade, or they do critical reading, and you have so much hours in critical reading? Do you do math and you could do calculus? If we're doing credit-based, remember our delivery is not credit-based. We just deliver the subject.
Who will take that question, please?
Thank you for your question. When you say credit-based, credit, as you're referring to it, is a tertiary equivalent that you're speaking to. So the manner in which you're referring to it is what we would be exposed to at a tertiary institution level. What the ministry sought to do with the implementation of credits is not to deliver credits in the traditional tertiary proficiency that you're speaking to. It was to provide a language of relevance that tertiary institutions could understand. So when credits came into being, we had students that were leaving the Bahamas from the north to the south, and the transcripts and the report cards were not in a language the tertiary institutions understood. We had A's and B's, we had ranges of A's and B's, we have ranges of performance indicators across the country. And they're saying to us, we don't understand this, what does it mean? Currently, with the introduction of credits, it was allocated 1 credit per core subject that a student would have taken, with the understanding that the introduction of an information management system would have brought us to the calibration of which you speak. We're just to that point now. So the commission is doing its work to look at that. So that's the point we're at now. But prior to that, we were looking to ensure that our students had indicators on their transcript that an international agency that they were transferring to could understand. So we could say to them, 27 credits, they did 5 contact hours in math per week. We could actually have a multiplier that they understood. So that's the foundation of what it meant.
Okay, I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, so keep in mind also that the accreditation that you're talking about, we're familiar with. They're familiar with. And when you go abroad to university, college, yes, there's WES, which is the World Educational Services, where the transcript is then interpreted based on what we had prior to this high school diploma. And keep in mind that there are some things already put in place to say what our graduation requirements are. And this is something that came on 2019 recently. I'm a guidance counselor for 19 years. So basically, we had accreditation, we would send transcript to WES, and they would interpret what was the graduation or what our BJC and BGCSE actually equated to. So are you now saying that this is in their system to understand what the credit-based system is when we send a transcript to WES?
So what the former Director of Education articulated during the experience of credits, and this was introduced in 2014, so it started with the first cohort and they would have had 3 years to roll it out. Agencies are now able to look at one consistent language for the country. So you're talking about VEX, but when you look at the performance indicators, an A was not consistently an A in Grand Bahama as it was in New Providence, as it was in MyCal. So while we said an A, one of the questions was, how is it that an A at some public schools could have been 90%, at some it could have been 95%? What is the variation and what is causing it? So that's historical. So what this did was brought us to a place of national consistency. Now, I can't speak to the intricacies of the system that you're referring to, but I can say to you what this has done is given the Bahamas a common language across all of the archipelago. That's the most I can say on it without becoming too technical. Feel free to talk after the meeting, and we could get a little more technical.
Thank you. Hold on, Mrs. Wilson wants to say something?
Yes, can you give me a recommendation, please, as it relates to the credits?
For one, I would remove the credit-based system. We don't deliver credit-based, and therefore we just do English math, which is something that we're accustomed to. We started on the plus scale years ago. We dropped the plus scale. We introduced the plus scale again. I think we had minus scale. So on the transcripts, it actually spoke to what an A was. It spoke to what B, C, all the way down. It spoke to what the BJC is, what the BGCSE is. They are familiar with SAT and ACT. So our transcripts spoke to that already. And I know when we're producing transcripts, we send them directly to the institution or directly to the third party, which is WES, an organization, as well as the requirements, because we have students who are dual citizenship, and some students who are dual find themselves, because they didn't have the BJC, they had to do a GED in the US. Mind you, they got a high school diploma, okay? But when they went to community colleges, private colleges would accept it because they're private. But community colleges, they would not accept it, and they would say, according to the Bahamas, you have not graduated because you did not have the 5 BJC. You might have had the 3.5 GPA, but you didn't have the 5 BJC. And so therefore they would recommend them to do a GED program. So I'm familiar with that being one of the stipulars in the international arena as to how a high school diploma really equates for us.
Thank you. Before you go, and this is for everyone here, the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission, they're accepting all recommendations. If you are not here, you can still make have your input. Please email your questions, suggestions, comments to bhsdc@moe.edu.bs. bhsdc@moe.edu.bs. Sir, your question, comment, and/or recommendation.
So we'd like to say thanks for everybody for being here. Now, I can just get straight to the point. Whose idea it was to do this?
Whose idea
it was for this? My thing was, I heard our host, I heard the chairman say, when they was in school, this wasn't around. Now, do you all think this is helping the kids or hurting them? Because 2019, we went through hurricane in Freeport. A lot of kids, more than 50% didn't graduate. And I want you all to take an emblem, look at the emblem on my shirt. I know when they say we're going to look into something, it takes years. You know, we've had a lot of kids in Grand Bahama not graduate. And I know colleges in the US does not accept BJC. So even if they take this, when they're in the college in the States, unless they're going to England or Canada, they still have to sit the SATs. So this doesn't make much sense, in my honest opinion. You understand what I'm saying? I have my daughter, and she wasn't doing good when she first went into school. Now she's at a 2-point-something. She has 8 out of 9 criteria. She has 3 BJCs, but there's one she doesn't have. So now she tried her best. Now when she goes to grade 12, you're gonna tell her, hey, you did so good, but you're not good enough to our standard. So where does that leave me now? Where does that leave parents in here who actually try? They have so much things to do, they try, and then the kids are doing the best they can, and then this pops up. And then you have people in the background laughing about it. This Grand Bahama, this ain't Nassau. I come out to see her walk, I know what it is. I know what it is when everything is natural, Nassau-centric. I know what it is. I know when it comes to family islands, everybody's come, do their PR, and then they go. So my thing is this committee literally gonna do something, or they're just gonna come here and talk?
Could I answer that?
That's, I be honest.
Chairman Thompson will answer that.
All right.
You didn't give your name.
My last name is Bastian. That's why I laugh.
Mr. Bastian indicated to me before the meeting started that his concern, and I told him, step up to the mic and express yourself, and he stepped up to the mic and expressed himself. Let me say this much, Mr. Bastian, and he said he would have heard so much talk and no action. I told Mr. Bastian privately, and I'm now saying to Mr. Bastian and anyone watching by Zoom and anyone present, yeah, this commission will talk, but it's an action commission. This commission is not Nassau-centric. I was appointed in July, but I had so many things on my plate, they waited for me for a whole month. And these persons here are very sensitive and compassionate and understanding of what you're going through.
We got parents in here very compassionate and sensitive about their kids' graduation.
But let me speak to the next question you raised about the 4 BJCs.
Right.
I just happen to believe. I now went to high school. I'm all-age school graduate. Well, we didn't graduate. Leaver. I just happen to believe, I am convinced, in fact, that it is within the capacity of every child in the Bahamas, with the exception of those with special needs that Mr. McPhee spoke to, that they have the capacity to get 4 BJC. That's a minimum. That's a minimum. But for Grand Bahama and Abaco, as Mrs. Bastian indicated, we understand what the students here went through. We're not insensitive to that. When you wrap that or combine that with the 2 years lockdown, Grand Bahama and Abaco had 3 years dealing with a double-headed monster, whereas the rest of the country, including Nassau, the students from Nassau were not exempted from that. They were the same, they experienced the same without the hurricane, right? The commission is understanding and sensitive to it. That's all I have to say on that question.
So here's what I'm saying. In those years when we had hurricane, we logged on to LMS, what wasn't worth nothing. You had parents that couldn't get on LMS for nothing. Kids that were signing on. I have one of my daughters, she was marked opted for almost 70 days. And she logged on to LMS religiously. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to say be devil's advocate. I'm just saying the thing is, we had Dorian and we had COVID. You understand what I'm saying? Every time you had, like, I think I spoke with Ms. Bastian on the phone. I called the ministry in reference to my daughter. From here, she told me, hey, we're working on it. We're going to see what we can do. A lot of people are tired of hearing, hey, we're going to see what we can do. I don't want my child to go to school and then you're still telling me, hey, we can see what we can do. That don't make no sense to me. So then why come to these town meetings? Why come to sit on the board of, talk to the board of directors if when I leave, it ain't top priority?
Mr. Bastian, I've indicated to you, sir, that this commission is different from all them town commission you've been at. We are an independent commission. All of these persons here and those who are watching in Nassau, members of the commission, are persons who in the private sector and the public sectors, serving educators and retired educators and other persons in the private sector with a lot on the line by way of reputation. You think I would have accepted this position just to ignore what you're talking about? I am saying to you, wait, sir, until the commission report is released, until the recommendations are released. I'm not going to be a part of any commission. I don't want to be the chairman of any commission that ignores what you're talking about. That's all I'm saying.
All right, remember earlier I said, do you take note of the emblem on my shirt? I have heard every speech there is. Every speech there is, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, we're different, we're this, we're that. I just say it. It gets kind of, you know.
It's repetitive in
saying the same thing.
You never heard me say the same
over
thing.
and over and respecting different results is called what?
Well, I don't know about the other commissioners, but you never heard me say.
I heard you talk before.
But you heard me talk before. You never heard me talk on the subject.
All right.
Mr. Bastian, all I can say is that you must hold their feet to the fire because they are committed to change what has been in the past, what you mentioned many times. Many of these commission members, they constitute a wide and varied group of stakeholders, all on one page. We have never, ever in this country have so many from so wide and disparate groups all on one page. I'm going to just keep going on, but I ask you and other parents to keep the feet of the commission members to the fire because this is for the sake of our country. Each and every child matters. But thank you very much.
Hold on.
Ladies, no, you hold on, sir.
Hold on, check it out.
Hold on, sir.
Sometimes in our Bahamas, change only takes a stroke of a pen.
Hold on, sir.
Right
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to a break in our town hall meeting. We are at the St. George's High School here in Freeport, Grand Bahama. We will return in a moment.
This public service announcement is brought to you by the Communications section of the Ministry of Education in conjunction with this channel.
Hi, my name is Pauline Davis Thompson, better known as Golden Girl Pauline, a proud Baintown girl. And this community helped me to become who I am. I got a great education through the public school system, and you can too. I am here to tell you that great education is your #1 tool to get you out of your circumstances. Please contact your school for tablets and instructional packages. My future Bahamian leaders, you must take your future in your own hands. The word education means E for excellent, D for dedication, U for unique, C for create, A for achieve, T for timeless, I for interaction, O for observe, and the big one, N, which means never. Never, ever, 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 ever give up on yourself because your future is in your own hands. Come a little closer. Please come a little closer. Come a little closer. Never, ever, 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 ever give up on yourself because your future is in your own hands. Once you get a great education, no one can cut you open and remove it.
This public service announcement was brought to you by the Communications section of the Ministry of Education in conjunction with this channel.
That is very important because I know most of the administrative staff and I know some of the teacher, I know the guidance counselor. Like right now, Aisha had a loss in the family and the guidance counselor was very attentive and she was able to feel comfortable to speak with the guidance counselor and get the help that she needs during a very, high pressure time. She's in grade 12, so it's a lot going on. So I'm very grateful that they're involved and I have the opportunity to speak with them one-on-one if I have to, and I feel like the principal, everybody is a team player, they work together.
It's very important. The reason for this is the parental relationship between the parent and the child, for me, is very important. Even though it's PDA conference, it's also child to the parent. It starts off from there first, and it's indicative of a strong relationship. Me as a mother, I would like to know where my son stands and where does he need to grow, what level he's on, and that prepares him for the future. Then for me, with the parent, as the parent with the teacher, then that transcends with the teacher. She's then going to let me know this is where he really stands, because he can say one thing, but the teacher then will say, okay, this is where he stands, this is where he needs to go, this is how we can do it as a community, as a group, as a family. And for me, it's very important, and that's why my son is where he is at right now, because of the PTA, the parent teacher, and also the parent and the child. So for me, that's very important for our generation and our future.
Welcome back. You're watching the town hall meeting of the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission. We're coming from Freeport, Grand Bahama at St. George's High School. We return to our questions. Ma'am, pose your question.
Good night, everyone. My name is Rebecca Knowles. I'm a St. George's 2020 graduate, and I have not received my diploma. I've fulfilled each and every single requirement, and they've told me that there's nothing on me for file, or go to the Ministry of Education. I've done that. They told me go to St. George's. St. George's told me go to, I'm currently in the University of Bahamas because I could not work, since that's the requirement. You need a high school diploma in order to get a decent job. After going to University of Bahamas, I was able to enter. I'm currently 2 years in, and I've still not received my diploma at all. There's multiple teachers who can verify that I've completed my attendance and all that. I could even go to where I completed my job readiness, and I could get the verification for that. I have it. I've already done everything needed. I've received each and every single time. My mother has to constantly go and check. They've told her, oh, just wait, or oh, there's nothing here. And I'm wondering, how long am I going to have to wait? Because this really taking long. I can't keep waiting, and then I can't get a decent job. That's taking too long to me, and I don't want to have to. I know I don't get the education. I have the BGCSEs, I got the BJCs from Sister Mary time. I don't know how much longer I have to wait, or if I should just give up on this completely. And $200 is a lot to give up on, to me, because I finally even see how important it is and how hard it is to work for money. It's serious, because it's taking too long.
Okay.
I want to know how long is it gonna take? How much longer is the wait gonna be?
Okay.
So, Rebecca, let me say, firstly, let me commend you for demonstrating the kind of resilience to continue to push. I'm looking into the records, and I don't want to speak to you independently, as we're not able to speak to every student in your record independently, but I did write your name down. I'm going to get your contact information, and I will check the file. I'm not looking at a record as to your status at the school level. So the list emanates at the school, and it's sent to the ministry, and we have to cross-reference, but I will certainly take the information, and I will revert to you personally with what would have happened over the period. So I don't want to speak to you specifically, because I cannot in the absence of your file or the school record. But I do want to take an opportunity to say that you mentioned that you continued pursuing your education and you went to college and you're working. I congratulate you and I salute you for being that determined, and you have a commitment that I will pull the file and I will revert to you. So please ensure that I get your number before you leave so that we can provide you with an individual answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, on your right is the president of the Bahamas Union of Teachers, Mrs. Belinda Wilson, who will tend to your matter.
Rebecca,
yes?
Just before you go, you said you paid $200. Can I get an understanding of what that was for?
That was the graduation fee that
Okay.
they charged us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Mrs. Wilson is on your right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My situation is almost the same as hers. My daughter graduated in 2020, and she hasn't received a high school diploma as yet, and she has been on the honor roll from she got in grade 10. She was doing well from grade 7, but she has been on the honor roll from the 10th grade. I've been to Ministry of Education. I came to the school, I spoke to Ms. Roll, and this would be the third week that I went to Mr. Ivan Butler's office in the Ministry of Education, and they were supposed to call me back to give me an answer in reference to her diploma, why she didn't receive it yet. And today make the third week, and nobody has called me, and I've been walking up and down to different offices seeking answers, and I don't know what to say to her because she worked very hard in school and she tried hard.
So thank you again for the comment, and I do understand the concern, and I hear the pain in your voice, and we share that, and so we apologize that, such actions transpired. Again, we had a data issue with the class of 2020 that I am aware of, and a data issue that had to be resolved at the school level before it was resolved at the ministry level. We're going to take the name of the student and seek to provide an answer. I'm going to ask District Superintendent Butler for his guidance in that regard, but we will work to address. So we'll get your information as well. Again, parents, and I know that our cases are individual, and we will seek to address the individual concerns as they arise, but recognize that all lists for student status emanates at the school. I'm not walking with a list specific to your child, and so it's going to be difficult to provide an individual answer relative to a specific student at this meeting. But once we take the information, we'll do our best to revert.
Good evening, Alex Thompson. A lot of the questions I had have already been asked, but there's some specific things that I just want to point out and make a statement. I may be speaking for some parents, but independently for myself and particularly my nephew. Number one, I guess I want to say commend the government for putting a commission together, because obviously they see there's a big problem. At first I thought it was just a publicity stunt, but perhaps we'll wait and see what happens. My concern is you're now looking at over the last 2 years. One of the things Mr. Thompson said, and I think Ms. Bastian, correct? Nice to meet you, by the way. We have 31 emails to you. We've not gotten the responses yet.
And you are?
And not really to be rude, I'm just, you know when people are just kind of frustrated?
That's not true.
Just frustrated. So my concern is, you said you're compassionate for Grand Bahama and Abaco. There is no way that the Ministry of Education, which I think is Nassau-centric, could express any type of compassion for Grand Bahama and Abaco if after 2019 and 2020, and you see a decline, and 2021, there is still no exceptions, for the students of Grand Bahama and Abaco. So I cannot take that statement to heart, because you can't do 2 years and not make any exception. Just a moment, Mr. Thompson, my statement I wanted to make. Another statement I have to make is, I agree with you, Mr. Thompson, it is time we change education. We should not have multiple government schools, high schools, on the island, all doing the same thing. It's time to have charter schools, and I think the commission here should look and to consider that as something. The pandemic exposed the weakness in the ministry at the head. It exposed a terrible weakness at the head. And the weakness, for the most part, is I think a lot of people are out of touch with what's going on at the school level, and I think the people in the Ministry of Education need to take a day or two and sit in a classroom. Because most of you, I can't say all, but most of you are college educated, more than likely have a bachelor's, some have a doctorate or even a master's or a PhD in the Ministry of Education. Very educated, very accomplished. But there is a disattachment to what's going on. Because for me, in the last couple of months, fighting for my nephew to get a diploma, having sent out multiple emails, multiple communications, multiple calls, going to the school with my sister, trying to go to Ministry of Education. You're told to go to the ministry, go to the school, go to the ministry, go to the counselor, go to the teacher. There's a disconnect. And it's a problem because the teachers are telling you, oh, we told the ministry. The ministry is saying, talk to the teachers. And I think that is the problem. I understand the commission here has been made to address these concerns, and I'm just taking this opportunity to point out my concerns that I have as a parent. And finally, my nephew is a 3.0 something honor roll student. He got a D in grade 10. An F in grade 12. He did not get his high school diploma because they said you cannot reclaim or recover when you have 2 failing grades, F. But I said, well, he got a D. They said, well, a D don't carry no grade, so it's just like an F. But when you look at that point system there, nothing there says that he cannot have a failing grade. And I might ask, has any of you ever failed a class and not had an opportunity to redeem themselves? I failed my first, I was allowed to skip a grade in high school. I failed my first semester miserably. They thought they made a mistake by putting me up a grade and a stream. But I pulled up my socks and I still graduated with honors because they gave me the opportunity to do so. And I think it's disheartening and it's a disadvantage to young students who have a failing grade or a D grade, and because that's the only thing that he missed, he was not able to get a high school diploma. That to me is an insult to a young Bahamian male, and it's an insult to our young Bahamian students. It says that no matter how good you do, any mistake that you make that doesn't add up, you are not going to get the reward. And that has me boiling to a point of tipping over. Now, my last question, the only question I guess I have for you, is for all the students that missed the mark some way, somehow, or did not get their diploma like this lady, even though she did meet the mark. Is there any plan in this commission's post to get the diploma into the hands of these students? Because I'm with her. When I look at applications that come looking for a job for me, if you don't have a high school diploma, you're not going to get the job. We were told that, oh, your nephew can get into college in the Bahamas. Your nephew could apply to some other colleges in the US without a diploma. I'm like, he worked hard, 3 years. He deserves it. And he should get it. So I want to know for all the students, not just my nephew, all the students who did not get their high school diploma, who deserves it, can they expect to get it before this year is out?
You want me? Thank you for your comments. I heard you reference a history of emails that were not responded to.
Yes.
I cannot say that I can confirm that because it may take a while, but I respond. So I'll speak to you afterward. Not 31. That would not be accurate. So I would not sit and allow you to say you sent me 31 emails. That would not be intentional. So if that happened and you said 31, I would not have seen 31 from you, but let me apologize to you publicly. It may be delayed, but I do respond. That's the first thing I wanted to put out to you. And so that's not intentional. You made reference of amendments for students who went through 2 years of hardship. Last year, the committee that Mr. Thompson sat on, the mandate for that group was to reduce the criteria. And so students that were impacted by Dorian and so forth, the lockdown, they were not held to the same criteria. Everything was reduced. Credits were reduced from 27 to 13 for students in Grand Bahama and Abaco, when New Providence was held to something higher than that because they did not experience the same. So there was a reduction. You referenced the D grade and the F grade that your nephew earned. Mm-hmm. The F grade could have been recovered in the summer program. Were you advised that your nephew, let me speak to the F first and I'll come back to the D. Were you advised that your nephew should have been enrolled in the National Summer Credit Recovery Program?
We were told he does not qualify for it, but there is a paid government program that he can take. Another paid program he can take to get a GED, but because his D does not carry a grade, it's
Okay.
considered an F. You're
No.
only allowed, so we were told,
Okay,
you're
let-
only allowed one F to enter into the recovery program.
And that part of it, there is truth to that, but let me explain what should have happened. At the school level, D grades are recovered. And so every student in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is able to accommodate, are able to participate in credit recovery for up to 2 D grades every term in school. Now, during the lockdown and during pandemic, there may have been issues that were prevailing, and I won't get into it because that did happen. But at the school level, a child can recover up to 4 D grades every school year. It's 10 hours, and you spoke to recovering and repeating a course, and you're absolutely correct. The credit recovery machinery that's in place at this point does not allow students to repeat the course. So when you would have failed at the college level, you retake the course and you get your full credit. At school, it's only 10 hours. And so for the 10 hours, they recover the D grade. The F grade, 30 hours have been attached to that of the student's time, so it's in the summer. And so all I can say to you at this point is we apologize for the miscommunication. I would have to rely on Mr. Butler to advise in that regard, but a student can recover a D grade, that is where it's recovered. D grades are recovered at the school level unless they are earned in the last term of grade 12 when recovery is at the national level. The F, the student should have been placed in the national program to recover the F. So in my mind, if those two balanced out, the provision should have been made.
So, but you just proved my point. There is a disconnect.
I understand.
From the ministry standpoint and what is required and what is said at the schools. And I don't know if you can hear behind me, but the parents behind me are saying, you're saying this, but this is not the information that's being disseminated to the parents.
Thank you. And your concern is duly noted, ma'am. So I did hear you very clearly. And so your concern is noted. I did make a note of it, and I appreciate you taking the time to express it with such passion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to take one more question before our break, and then we'll entertain the other questions at the end. Yes, Ms. Delancey?
She wanted to respond.
I think I've heard this often enough to think that one of our recommendations is probably going to be that parents should be given the criteria for the for the diploma when the child registers in grade 10 in writing. Parents can sign for it, so everybody knows what the criteria are. The second thing is that my subcommittee will also be looking at this whole process for the flow of information, because we are finding as we move around that information does not seem to flow up and down and across as it should. So we must recommend how and what that process is going to be. I know it is frustrating for your nephew, but out of it comes that those are the kinds of things that we must be looking at. With regard to Mrs. Wilson is at the back. With regard to the criteria, I think one of the things they're going to be looking at is what are the schools doing throughout the year to assist children who may be sliding to a D and an F. So that, I know that schools have been asked to do it, but we need to find out what is happening out there. Because if a child slides to a D, that D can be corrected with possibly some afternoon classes or even summer classes. An F is a slightly different issue. It needs more intensity, but certainly a D can move on. So since she's at the back, I kind of pinch hitting for her. And that's one of the things that we must look at. What is the intervention during the term?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. We'll entertain your question. Good. Yes, walk up to the mic. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. I'm not sure if I should give my name, but as a current high school student, I want to ask a minor question that is concerned to me. If we were to have another major hurricane like 2019 Dorian, or if we were to go through another pandemic like COVID-19 in 2021, I believe, will the criteria change to higher standards for students? And also, for students who will probably have their power off during those times, will they be able to give like an institution or a place so they'll be able to go there, use Wi-Fi computers to go onto online schools?
I am so proud to hear you ask your question, and let me say thank you for asking. With Dorian and COVID-19, criteria was reduced. And so yes, if there is a natural occurrence or something that happens in the life of the school that is beyond the scope of what the child or the family could be responsible for, the ministry has reduced the criteria, so you're not expected to do as much. And I'm certain that with the commission doing its work, they will continue to look at how students will not be disadvantaged. And so what that means is that if you can't control it, then you're not responsible for it, is what the commission has said. So they are looking at that. Relative to your forward thinking in reference to a place for students to continue their studies, that is certainly something that the government of the Bahamas is looking into. It's above what we are doing with this work, but it is something that they're looking at in conjunction with your district superintendent and your island, your school leadership. But I'm smiling. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your forward thinking, and thank you for your commitment.
Can I ask
Yes,
one
go
more
right ahead.
question? Will I not be able to graduate if I do not get my 30 hours of community service?
Community service has been reduced. And so in partnership with your school, and let me also say to parents, there are instances where students have extenuating circumstances that they did not satisfy a particular criterion. The principal at the school, through the district superintendent on the island, has the ability to write a letter of justification making mention of the extenuating circumstances that impacted the student outside of Dorian and COVID that prevented you from getting the diploma. The community service hours have been reduced to 20, so you should be able to, but if you're not, speak to your council or your school leadership, have them to understand why you couldn't do it, and let them speak on your behalf.
And may I ask one last question? I
Go ahead.
apologize. For students who probably have some sort of circumstance that they may have skipped an entire semester or a year of school, and maybe they have lost some social skills over the years or some mental problems, what are schools supposed to do with students such as that?
So that's the inclusion committee, and I know that my colleague, Mr. McPhee, is working with the inclusion, so he'll provide a response to you. But we are looking to see how best we could mediate. But Mr. McPhee?
Yes, one of the, as I would have said earlier, when we talk about learning disabilities, most of the time persons are just looking at physical and those things that they can see. The inclusion subcommittee, one of the key points on their platform is identifying these different categories, and one of them have to do with the socioeconomic. I know you would have mentioned not having access to internet. Even outside of Dorian, something similar, and I pray God that does not be what drives us to, or even another pandemic. Right now, in what we may consider the most normal and natural, we have a whole group, well, a number of categories of students who are being disadvantaged. And those groups of students who may fall under whether it's socioeconomic, the language barrier, all of those are what the subcommittee of inclusion is looking at. And so I too join the chair and also DPS Bastian with thanking you, because the purpose, and I want to make clear, this commission is an independent commission with the mandate to look at inclusiveness. The stakeholders meeting is the opportunity for us to hear from you what should be recommended or what is your suggestion. And so I'm encouraging those of you who come to the mic, while it's good to voice what the present concern is, also feel free to share with us what are the recommendations. So for my brother who I heard, and I must say who seems to be very passionate.
Brother Bastian.
Yes, Brother Bastian. In just listening to you, one of the things that I heard coming from that you did not say outright, but I heard it from listening aids and another person, what would be the opportunity if my child meets all of the criteria that is outside the academic, which is they've made the attendance, the punctuality to commute. The only thing that is outstanding though is they may have missed on the academic. Is the commission looking at making a recommendation that says if the child missed the academic, the one BJC, then shouldn't there be an opportunity if even 10 years along the line, because now with the technology, the information is there. They complete that BJC. Can they be provided their diploma, as would be the equivalent in the US with a GED? So what I'm saying is, I don't want to try to prevent anybody from expressing their views, but understand that this commission does not represent the government of the Bahamas, the Ministry of Education. It represents the voice of the parents and the students. So I'm encouraging you all, if not tonight, send to us, commission, here is a suggestion or recommendation that may assess what I have experienced, what I am experiencing, or what someone may experience in the future.
And you can email those questions, suggestions, and/or recommendations to bhsdc@mou.edu.bs. Before we go to our commercial break, our district superintendent, Mr. Ivan Butler, also wanted to comment on the previous speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albright. To our student, she mentioned something along the lines of, if we ever go through another hurricane, what we've been doing in our schools, we've been encouraging all principals to have what we call technology days. So we want our students to continue to use the technology in the event that we have to close school for any period of time. Students can easily switch from face-to-face to the virtual learning platform. And so parents, we also want to encourage you that things like notebooks and laptops, they are becoming a part of the students' tools for schools. And so we want you to invest in laptops, invest in tablets for your children, because at any point we are able to switch from the face-to-face to the virtual platform. We have improved the technology, we've improved the connectivity in our schools, and so at any point, if we need to switch, we will switch. So take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butler. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to our final break. You're watching a town hall meeting coming from St. George's High School in Grand Bahama. We have our closing remarks and final questions from our audience when we return.
Students, faculty, fellow citizens, show your pride for the Doris Johnson Mystic Marlins. Dr. Doris Johnson was a trailblazer. She was the first woman to run for the legislature, the first woman appointed to the Senate, the first woman to be Minister of Government, and the first woman elected to President of the Senate. Dr. Doris Johnson, as a suffragette, successfully advocated for women's right to vote in the Bahamas during the 1950s. Doris Johnson Senior High School's motto, Leadership Through Education and Discipline, is reflective of the school's commitment to learning and discipline by continuing the advancement of the school's campus, subjects offered, and student body. A school we all can be proud of.
In an effort to invoke school pride in our public school students and encourage a greater awareness of their school's history, the Communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training is organizing a school pride video competition throughout the Bahamas. All videos are to be produced by the students in collaboration with faculty from their respective schools. Completed videos must then be posted to the school's Facebook page with a tag to the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training's Facebook page. Winner of the primary, junior, and senior high schools will be determined by the number of likes received on Facebook. For competition guidelines, visit the Ministry of Education's Facebook page.
Welcome back. We are at St. George's High School, where we are conducting a town hall meeting on the Bahamas High School Diploma. We continue with our questions. Sir?
All right, good evening, everyone. It's just a joy and a good thing to see that we have a committee such as this to take advantage of this current opportunity to improve our education system. I'm not here as a parent, I'm here actually just to lend some support to the direction that you're going. I noticed that you mentioned you're looking at China, you're looking at Cuba, you're looking at various other countries and what their education systems are. I'd like to also recommend that you look towards the Netherlands and Canada. Reason being, I noticed that our 2019 math curriculum now resembles something that is international. In its makeup, it looks like our students would be able to walk out of math and be competitive globally. One area that I would ask that you look at in the math curriculum is that of the structure of testing. When it comes to our testing, we're testing memory and procedure. Memory and procedure. We're not testing for competencies. Even the way our tests are written and made up, we're testing for memory and procedure, not competencies like critical thinking, problem solving, the ability to work in collaborative groups, which is the way the world is going today. I also want to just take the opportunity to talk about work-life balance for our teachers. Lots of teachers are burnt out. They're working very, very hard with the system so that they can be able to provide a service for students. We're finding now, because of COVID and the disparity within the classes, that we have a need for differentiation within the classroom. You have 10th graders now in the classroom that, they haven't passed their BJCs. And teachers are now having to look at that difference within the classroom, preparing them for their BJCSEs, as well as those that are, haven't passed their BJCs, having to work with them. The disparity and the technology just lend to that. And so I'd like to ask that we continue on that track. But with the work-life balance, the competency and mastery processes for our teachers would lend to giving them a break. When I say a break, I mean just lightening their load, because a student would take a math test or a language test, and once they've done that, if they fail, they get re-examined with another test. Whereas when you have a competency-based system, you're now able to look through the competency and say, okay, you know what, you're good in comprehension, but your vocabulary can use a little bit of strengthening. I would test you in that specific area rather than write an entire test and administer that to them again. So I just like to take the opportunity while you're here to say, hey, congratulations, you're on a wonderful track. We know the transition is difficult. Entering data, that's, the systems are new. I pray that it all works out, all of its kinks shortly, so that we can have a smooth flow forward, but, keep pressing forward and, help us to be competitive internationally. And that brings me to one last point, which is a lot of our students in this current system who do get the opportunity to go to college or university, most of them end up on the 5 to 8 year track. 5 to 8 year track. That is killing our students. We want them to go in on the 4 year track. It saves them money, it shows competitiveness, it shows that what they're capable of doing matches with international standards. When our students go into the United States and they have to take, class reading so that they can get their reading levels up, it throws them off of that 4-year track and it puts them on that 5 to 8-year track. When people leave places like Canada, places like New Zealand, and they go anywhere around the world, they can work. They can just go in and work. They're professionals. But when persons leave countries, right, so-called third world, fifth world countries like India and other countries, and they go into countries like Canada, I've seen PhDs sitting at bachelor's degrees getting upgraded because they don't have that level of experience. And so I want to just challenge you, as we examine our education system, we want to ensure that when our children walk out with a high school diploma, even the College of the Bahamas, I mean, that's not this panel, but when they walk into another country, that they can walk in knowing that they are qualified, that they don't have to go and do upgrades, all of which burdens them at their pockets, their families, and other things. So
thank you.
That's a challenge to you. Keep pressing forward.
Thank you very much. Again, you can email those recommendations to bhsdc@moe.edu.bs. Thank you very much for your contribution. Ma'am?
Yes, Veronica here. I just want to say thank you for the relationship you're building as partnership rather than transactional. I appreciate that so much with you guys. I am returning to the Bahamas from many years abroad. Question I have for Mr. McPhee. I don't know if the Bahamas something a law. We have ADA that makes us do everything that we have to do, because if we don't, we are sued, which is a verb in the United States, not a noun. So what I'm asking, is there teeth to your inclusion? Is there that's the kinds of things I want to see, I would love to see. We have, like I said, in the United States, we have the American Disability Act, which is a law. And if you don't follow it, you are penalized for it. So I would like for something of the sort to happen. And when people say education is not political, education is political. So that's one of the questions. The other question, well, one of the suggestions, are you giving any thought for, I'm going to get crushed on here, the individual educational plan, an IEP? Every student, right now, I know that students who are in the, we call it special ed department, has an IEP. But also in the United States, there's a trend in my county that every student has an IEP with a portfolio that goes along with it. So you could see the child's progress over a period of time. So I don't know if that's something you would think about having it as well. Another controversy. We have so many schools in the Bahamas competing with each other. Is there any thought about having a magnet school? A school for the performing arts, a school for technology, a school for whatever. I'm from a wealthy county, but we have those schools because those schools are necessary because you stop the competition. The money goes certain places, and there's only so much money to be spread around. So when you have these magnet schools, we call it, that's where those students, once they get into 10th grade, well, actually 9th grade, they could go into these, begin at 6th grade. They could start going into these. You have the humanities, students who want to be writers, who want to do TV production, all of those kinds of things. So it's a magnet schools. I'm just thinking maybe you would want to think about going to magnet school area.
You want to give them an opportunity to answer as we wrap up our evening?
Well, I'm just throwing out ideas. I don't even know if it's a question. But one of the
okay.
things also I would like to suggest is we have a long chain of islands. Okay, can we have a central, southern, and northern jurisdiction for education rather than it being the entire thing run through one area? It's decentralizing, and I know people, once they have power, they don't like to give it up. That is a part of humanity. That's a part of being a human. But I would love to see that chunk in the northern, central, and southern Bahamas, and you have, because people in the southern and people in the northern, it's difficult to get to the central where everything is centered to say, hey, look, this is what we need, this is what we need. So if it is structured in such a manner, I would think it would allow people to make us more partners, make us more stakeholders, rather than us being just plain transactional. Thank you.
Thank you also. Food for thought, Mr. McPhee. Before our final question, Mr. Thompson.
Thanks, Mrs. Pearson, for your comments, recommendations, and careful question. I will attempt to answer one of them, the one that bears on special education or students with special needs. You reference federal laws in the states, etc., etc. I happen to have been on a national committee, 2003, on special education. I happen to have been the deputy chair there with a great permanent secretary by the name of Lois Simonet. And our discoveries were that we in the Bahamas were in the infant stages of taking care of students and persons with special needs. We've come a long way since then in making our schools, government ministries, and so forth more accessible to persons with special needs, students with special needs. Today, when the district superintendent had the meeting with the educators, the initial questions, I believe the first 30 minutes, was taken up with special needs person as it ought to be. They had been left behind so far. And so we in the Bahamas could learn a whole lot of what is being done in the United States and how special needs persons are being treated and celebrated. And we are well on the way there now, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our final question.
Marva Moxie. I wanted to ask if you can review the point system that you're considering implementing, because normally the Fs are recoverable with the point system in the colleges. Even when you get an F, you're able to retake the class, and the F stays on the transcript, but it's not counted towards your cumulative or final GPA. And then I wanted to speak about the child coming from junior high with a 1.0. What would be the incentive for them to come to high school knowing that it is highly unlikely that they will get a high school diploma? They might as well enroll in a recognized GED program. And I know that you're at the point where you want to change the high school diploma to the 8 criteria that you have set. But I wanted to ask if this was based on some statistical data on the impact of persons who received high school diplomas in the past without BJCs. Why is it that we're penalizing, in my view, in my humble opinion, we're penalizing instead of trying to be a little more inclusive with those students that are not as brilliant as those who aspire to go to colleges? And we're comparing our country to Singapore and the UK and other countries, but all things are not equal, because in those countries, teachers don't walk in the classroom and have a lack of. Students don't walk in the classroom and don't have books and pencils and basic things. Their parents can't afford to buy a textbook for $109, so they have to do without. So we don't have a level playing field. So why are we using what works for Singapore and other countries and that will definitely not work in the Bahamas unless we ensure that every child that comes to school has everything that he needs, and every teacher in the classroom has the materials to execute to the students in the classroom. I know I was told one question.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll end there.
Yep.
And there's another parent here whose child didn't get a high school diploma. So I don't know if one of you would like to speak with him.
Yeah, Mrs. Wilson is in the back. She's taking all the information.
Okay, so thank you very much. And I also want to say the next time you do a town meeting, I think the time would be better spent without all of that audio and video thing. We're here. I took the time out to come and sit in the audience. If persons want to come in here, they should come too. I shouldn't have to sit down and hear ads about the Ministry of Education and the PTA and the importance of it. That's all well and good, but I want to get my question in like everybody else sitting in here. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, ma'am. Relative to the points that were raised, and she talked about the credit system and the F grade. The Commission is currently looking at the recovery of F grades for students. And so we'd permit the Commission an opportunity to review the process of F grades being recovered for students. She mentioned a GED versus, or an academic proficiency versus a competency-based. Career and technical education, which we've heard much about tonight. Another parent, the former principal mentioned magnet schools, or I think it was the former principal who mentioned magnet schools. The ministry does have magnet programs that are offered in some schools, but we do appreciate, when I say a magnet program, there are programs of specialization. So you may have a hospitality focus in a school. It is not the entire school, it's a program in the school that operates. Those do exist. And so working on not one centralized institution, there's not one school where you have all of them and the students come in. And so, right, I understand. So, understood. And so competency-based training that the parent was speaking about provides an opportunity for students to demonstrate where they are based on their abilities, and that is something the Commission has discussed already. And I think the last thing that was noted was funding, and we totally agree with her. If we want to have the exit competencies that we aspire to, it starts and it ends with funding, and that's the most I can say on that, so I totally support the comment on funding. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. We're at the end of our town hall meeting here in Freeport, Grand Bahama at St. George's High School. Again, these meetings will continue throughout our archipelago. We started in New Providence, came to Grand Bahama. Now those meetings will continue in the islands of the Bahamas as far south as Inagua. Your participation is very important because the recommendations, comments that you give to the Commission will help decide whether the Bahamas High School Diploma, its requirements, the age criteria will be amended or remain the same. Again, you can email your questions, responses, and or recommendations to bhsdc@mou.edu.bs. I would like to now invite the chairman of our commission, Mr. Cecil Thompson, to give his closing remarks. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Albury. Tonight has been a most fulfilling night. We heard from the parents in Freeport tonight. We were, as we were in Nassau, as we were in 8 Mile Rock last night, certainly Freeport came well prepared and asked the hard question that they had, and we welcome that. You certainly educate the members of this commission. I know Mrs. Knows has already left, but she'll be surprised to know that most of the questions she may ask and most of the comment, we heard the same in Nassau, we heard the same in 8 Mile Rock. And my heart goes out to those high school students who, it appears, they all did everything that they should have done to obtain the high school diploma, and yet 2 years on, they still haven't had the been awarded the high school diploma. Mrs. Bastian is looking into that. The Minister of Education need to be commended, in my humble opinion, for having appointed this independent committee. She could have easily done as all other ministers of education before her do, like the Levi and the priests walk on the other side. But she decided, well, it's in the national interest that she appoint a committee, an independent committee, to look at all of the parameters that affect the Bahamas High School diploma, particularly negatively, ask the members of the commission to submit recommendations that will improve upon it. I think that is something that is commendable and laudable. We don't have any argument with any questions being posed, any recommendations being made, any comment being made. My only concern was that I don't want any parent in Freeport or anywhere in the country to question my integrity. I have serious difficulties with that. Don't treat me like any politician, I'm not, right? What we are doing, we are championing the causes of students who should have graduated, they did not. We're looking at that system, right? And we will make recommendation. This commission is very student-friendly. You know, rubber stamp commission, right? And so if you think this is a rubber stamp commission, you got us all wrong. All I'm saying is this. The highlight of my career in teaching, you're not going to believe this if I told you what the highlight is. It wasn't in Auckland as a principal, not in South Andros, not at 8 Mile Rock, not at Hawksville, I will. The highlight of my career in education is, it came about in 2004 after the devastation of Hurricane Francis and Jane. Could you believe that? This island was plunged into darkness for months. The Minister of Education then, Honorable Alfred Sayers, made an appeal to educators. And those principals and teachers forgot the fact that they didn't have lights on in their homes, no running water. They opened the classrooms. I never saw dedication at higher height. I never saw caring at a deeper depth. I never saw commitment so wide. It was the highlight of my career. Could Dorian and the lockdown cause another highlight?
Yes.
I believe out of all this thing, we're going to come up with some beautiful music. I believe that. Once the commission would have submitted its recommendations, and those recommendations would have been implemented, right? That's what ended up happening, right? And so I'm saying to you, hold our feet to the fire. Hold us responsible, not for the implementation, but for the recommendation. The Minister of Education and the government of the Bahamas will have to make sure it's implemented. But if our recommendations are wishy-washy, hold us responsible. And I'll take full blame for that. I promise you it would not. I wanted to thank the district superintendent. I want to thank the parents in 8 Mile Rock. I especially want to thank the parents and audience in Freeport tonight. And of course, our host, the communication section of the Ministry of Education, teaming up with ZNS so that to make sure that what happens in Freeport is seen or could have been seen throughout the country. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Again, our Minister of Education and Technical and Vocational Training, the Honorable Glenys Allen Martin, reiterates, this is not an exercise to compromise standards. You've been watching a production of the communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training in partnership with the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas, the Northern Service. I'm Vaughn Albury. Good night.
You've been watching the Bahamas High School Diploma Review Commission's Town Hall meeting. Commission members met with members of the public to inform and discuss possible changes to criteria for 12th grade students to earn the Bahamas High School Diploma. This has been a production of the Communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training.